Welcome to Feminine Power Time. Turn off the chatter and tune in to what matters. This is the place where we come together to reimagine the way we and the world work from the inside out when the feminine leads. We come here to embrace our power, our wisdom, and our influence of our personal leadership to co-create a better, brighter world for ourselves, those we touch, and generations to come through our voices, our choices, and presence within the ecosystems we live, lead, and love. And I am Christina Rilo, your host, and I am over the moon excited to be able to invite you into this first episode of season 10. If you missed the kind of opening of season 10 in episode 270, go back and take a look at that. It sets the context for us for this whole season 10. In this episode 271, we are going to dive into and begin working with a model, because you call it a model that I downloaded in 2018 that really, truly did answer a question that I had back when I was in graduate school in 2003 getting my MBA, which is where are the models and all of the wisdom that are about, women? And at that time, I didn't know about the feminine, but about women. Like, why are all these models been created about what leadership is supposed to look like from this very drab, bland, male kind of perspective? Everyone seems to be white males, and no dissing on the white males at all. It's just a consciousness. We're going to talk about that today, about archetypes. But just this, it was like an energy. I didn't have language for it. I didn't know what an archetype was when I was getting my MBA. I surely didn't know what the feminine was. This was not part of my education. It wasn't until I moved to the Bay Area and really started studying with what are called wisdom teachers in traditional wisdom schools, which, by the way, have been around for thousands of years before the modern education system was created. And we won't get into all of that, but it's a real thing. People like Plato and Socrates and Hypatia and some people you've known, some people you haven't, they've attended these wisdom schools. And so in those wisdom schools, we learn all kinds of things that really make a well-rounded human. And one of the things that I realized was that over time, through then my career, as I worked in leadership within companies as an employee and then as an entrepreneur, and then all the things I've done ever since, is that we were missing language and images and metaphors that really gave voice, and not just voice, but an embodied feeling of what the feminine actually is. So that instead of people feeling like the word feminine was like talking about sanitary products, or feminine was all of a sudden, everything was pink. Really understanding that there are these aspects within ourselves, these energies within ourselves, that if we can understand them and give language to them, they have a lot of power to help us create lives, relationships, worlds, systems that are really rooted in wholeness. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to talk just a little bit about what archetypes are. You may be super familiar with archetypes. You might not know what archetypes are, but I want to get us a basis of what archetypes really are. And one of the reasons I decided to focus on these feminine leadership archetypes, there are 8 this season, and I've been teaching since 2018. I've taught them in all of the women's leadership councils I've done. I share them with all my one-on-one leadership clients. I was able to teach it to a board of women who are affiliated with the Haas School of Business, who are really focused on sustainability. They all wanted to know if there was an archetype quiz that they could take. And afterwards they came up and oh my God, I'm this one. Oh my God, I'm this one. And so I've been teaching them now for 7 years. And so I guess it feels like 7 years is kind of one of those markers that says, okay, now it's time to bring them out into the world. And so after we talk about archetypes, I'm going to share with you the feminine leadership archetypes and what specifically they are. And then we'll dive deep into the Creatrix. And she had to be the one that we started with. So I'm going to invite you to go ahead and just turn off the outside world. And whether you're walking or you're cooking or you're driving, or you're just downshifting or upshifting with me today, just to feel yourself coming into this place, almost like we were going to wisdom school. And we are stepping out of the banana world, stepping out of the day-to-day world, and kind of stepping into a space sometimes that's called being between the worlds, for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. And just let this wisdom and these teachings kind of, when we're working in the realm of wisdom, and specifically in the realm of the feminine, which the feminine is the intuitive. And while we need the intellect, without the intuitive, humanity creates all kinds of challenges. And the feminine is also the creative energy, so it's where our imagination comes forth. Feminine is also where the mystery is. It's necessary. Even science needs to keep the mystery within it, because otherwise you just create dogma about this is how things are. But if you look across science for many, many hundreds of years, the understanding of humanity has evolved. And if we only stayed, like clinging on to it has to be this way, we weren't receptive to evolution and new insights coming through. That's a world without the feminine, and it's dry and it's boring, and it's not what we need at this point, because we actually do need the feminine energy to birth new worlds. So let's talk about archetypes. So I just pulled this up because it's like archetypes. There's been a lot of people and a lot of conscious thinkers that have talked about archetypes for a while. But I just pulled up some that I know have some really good things to say about it, including Dr. Jean Houston, Deepak Chopra, Carolyn Myss, of course Jung, and then my teacher Ariel Spilsbury. And I'll just share a couple things about what archetypes actually are. So Jung talks about archetypes in the perspective of that an archetype is like a universal inherited predisposition and to respond to certain experiences. It's a primordial image or pattern of thought that is present in our collective unconscious, and it shapes our perceptions, our behaviors, and our understanding of the world. They're almost like archetypes are these pre-programmed frameworks that influence how we interpret life and we interact with others. So you kind of think of that. There's like they're how we kind of see and understand. And then Deepak Chopra says that archetypes are perennial themes that reside at the level of the collective mind field, universal soul. These themes are representations of our collective soul's yearning, imagination, and deepest desires. Anytime a person or character is bigger than life, we are seeing the enactment of an archetype. Sound familiar? What's going on right now in the world? Archetypes are born of the collective soul, but are enacted by individual souls. Their mythical dramas play out in the daily life of human beings. Archetypes are life models, images, and ideas that guide the direction of your life towards your soul's ultimate destiny. Every human being is attuned to some characteristic archetypes or types. Each person is hardwired to enact or model archetypal characteristics. Our individual archetypes are reflected in our desires and intentions. Ask yourself, what do I want? What is the purpose of my existence? And if you listen with your soul, the archetype will answer. Dr. Jean Houston says, archetypes are patterns of psychic energy, patterns of relationship. Archetypes are organs of essence, the cosmic blueprints of how it all works. Archetypes are patterns of creation. I love this. Patterns of creation, yearning at the threshold of reality to enter into time and space. They're constructs that provide order, meaning, and direction to apparent chaos. Can you all see why we're talking about archetypes? Because what's happening right now is so connected to archetypal energy. You've heard me talk about it last season for many seasons, is that we don't want to look at any one leader, a person in that, let me say that, because we're also reframing leader over here. So just because a person has a position of leadership does not mean they're a leader. Important distinction. People that are in leadership positions and positions of authority and power who are not leaders but are dominators and or manipulators or put the whole kind of things that are go down that way, is that they're embodying archetypal energy. Like it's a looking at this archetypal energy of consciousness that's showing up. It could be showing up it shows up in family systems, it shows up in team systems, it shows up in organizational systems, and currently it's showing up in our world system that some people would call politics. But I'd like to say, and I would really love for us all to be open to this idea, is that when you use the word politics, just stop for a moment and realize that politics is part of everything on this planet. Politics is how we relate. Politics is how we get things done. Politics is how people push their agendas and push things forward. It's like the interrelational field. And in politics is kind of overshadowed and gotten out of control in these systems because our value systems and the wounds and all the other things have kind of popped up. And so it's like all of that shadow frequency we talked about is running the show in many ways. So instead of saying that's about politics, we say that's actually about governance and what governance is. And that's about education. And that's about how things work differently at a community level versus a united level. This is about economics. We want to kind of stop talking about things as politics and start using our language to name the systems that we're actually looking at. Because then what you'll start to see is that these archetypes, y'all, they're like taking root, and they're playing these like archetypal games in lots of different places, which is why it feels so overwhelming. And so if we try to, and I don't want to say battle, because I am so not into, you don't want to battle archetypes, because if you battle archetypes, you'll just exhaust yourself and your life force and your chi, and like down you go. But you can embody and express archetypal energy that is aligned with your design and embrace our power to bring that archetypal energy through in a way that creates wholeness for ourselves, those that we are in relationship with, our families, our teams, the systems that we influence, right? And some of us that will be on a much bigger stage, that will be public. But for most of us, it's not going to be so public, the way we actually use our power and our presence to create a better, brighter world. So just starting to think about that. So why I chose the archetypes is like, okay, there's archetypal games being played. Let's not go head on at it, but let's open ourselves up to and understand how to work with the archetypal energy that's genuinely part of you. Not to like bring in archetypal energy that is not your energy, because that is what they call in different psychological terms archetypal possession, where like a person actually they get possessed by the archetype. And it's almost like the human kind of disappears and the archetype takes over. So again, you could look around at the current world situation and you could see how like people almost don't feel human sometimes. And they're like, because they become so embodied by this archetype that human part isn't really there. I mean, it's there, but it's so under the archetype that it's not running the operating system. And archetypal energy, when it's that kind of distorted energy, it doesn't really care about humans. This is why you're like, I don't understand. Like, how could they not care? How could they not see the harm that's happening? Why would they want to cut down all the trees? Why would they want to put people into into jails? Like, because they're operating out of an archetypal energy that they're almost like disconnected from their humanity. So the way that I'm bringing archetypal energy in is not about that. It's much more about finding the archetypal resonance that you have with archetypes and an archetypal energy that's already innate within you, but it doesn't. If you don't have a language for it, it's very hard to access it, and that's what this model and these archetypes will do. But let me share with you these two. So these two other parts of archetypal wisdom that will help you with this. So this comes from one of my primary teachers, Ariel Spilsbury. Archetypes function to assist us in looking at our lives from a much larger, more mythic, and spiritually expansive perspective than our ordinary ego day-to-day view of the self. In virtually all cultures, there are about 20 to 23 mythic archetypal containers of divine consciousness. These archetypal containers, when looked at as a whole, provide a patterning of consciousness, a blueprint for spiritual evolution. You can see these archetypes in the Tarot archetypes, the Jungian archetypes, the Mayan archetypes, and many others. Archetypal forms remain constant as an energetic pattern of consciousness, regardless of how the individual form varies from culture to culture or time to time. These archetypal containers rise up from the collective unconscious, especially in the drama of the life of humans, making their presence known and felt, that we are more than we seem in daily life. And Carolyn Miss adds, I've long believed that it's impossible for us to know who we truly are unless we understand archetypes, and more specifically, our own personal archetypes, because archetypes are the psychic lenses through which we view ourselves and the world around us. I'm so excited to work with you all. I feel like I've these feminine leadership archetypes that I downloaded when I moved to Bainbridge Island. They appeared almost like within days of getting to Bainbridge Island. Actually come out of the deep, the archetypal feminine work that I was initiated in my wisdom school. So these are not like Christina Rilo made up these nice little archetypes because they sound all lovely. They are blending together of archetypes, of feminine archetypes, feminine energy. Again, not woman, not man, but feminine energies that are, as Ariel was saying, they run across all cultures. So they're not particular to any one culture, but these archetypes are present in all cultures. So my archetypes that I'm going to share with you, these 8, they come from a very, very deep wisdom lineage of what feminine archetypal energy is on this planet. And then what I did is I learned that through Ariel Spilsbury and that lineage, as well as my Earth Wisdom teacher, but that I just want to acknowledge that this is the lineage it's coming through. Then my job is to take it and marry it with my leadership part and my MBA part and my systems part and all my parts. And then this is what popped out. And it popped out pretty much exactly as it is. Each of these feminine leadership archetypes actually have an image, and then they have what's called the transmission. And that transmission is a writing that I wrote about all of the different archetypes, and they're pretty pure. So I'm going to share that with you today. And then the model, eventually I'll share with you the model and I'll post it up on my website. But if you think about the archetypes for right now, imagine in your mind's eye a flower with 8 petals on it. So it has 4 main petals, north, south, west, east, and then it has the cross quarter ones. Mimics basically the turning points of the year. And 8 is a number that also is connected to the harmony of dualistic things and bringing them together in harmony, and the 8 creates the whole. And so each of those petals is a feminine leadership archetype. And then in the center, which would be like the flower center has a circle with a triangle in it. And that's like the center of the flower that all of these come out of. And some of you have heard me talk about that symbol of the circle with the triangle, which is the symbol for elevation out of duality reality through transcending those denser things through the power of compassion. And so in ancient wisdom teachings, timeless wisdom teachings, you would see that triangle, and you can draw it. It would really help you to actually see this, draw the circle and then draw the triangle. And on the right-hand side of the triangle on the bottom is power. On the left-hand side of the triangle on the bottom is wisdom. And on top, the triangle is love. And you can also put compassion, compassion is a form of love. There's multiple forms of love, but whatever word works best for you there. And so the teaching is when wisdom reconnects to power, because what's happened is humanity has created a world that's really just focused on the power. And we need to come back and reattach wisdom. So when wisdom reconnects to power, it balances that out, and if the focus is on love and compassion as the point of what we're all focused on, then we will create realities that are rooted in sustainability and wholeness and inclusivity and harmony, where there's more than enough for what we all need. It's kind of like Gandhi said that there is enough for our need, but not for our greed. And so a world that is so over-indexed on power without wisdom, because it hasn't been taught in traditional, reality for a long time, it gets distorted. It's just how it works. All right, so let me share with you why these feminine leadership archetypes, kind of what they do. I'll give you the definition of the feminine leadership archetypes, and then we'll spend the second half of this one just swimming in the Creatrix. And then as we go forward throughout the year, on the turns, I'll be dropping in a new archetype. So kind of the invitation is as we activate each one of these archetypes, take it into your life and play with it and apply it. And I'll give you some ways to do that as well. So the feminine leadership archetypes really focus on this place of where presence and power work together. But if we don't have our genuine presence kind of fueling power, our power can very easily get distorted by the banana world consciousness. And it will be either like overpowered in the male-dominated way, or it will be like overpowered in the female-dominated way, which can also look very disempowered. So these help us give language to feminine presence. So feminine presence, if you think about it, it's really not, if the feminine in itself isn't as overt or visible or directly trackable to the bottom line as the more traditionally extroverted, decisive leadership skills. But it's the impact of feminine presence on an organization, on a family, on a community, or on its people is immense. So what I see and why these are so important to us is that we don't value the feminine. Not even you and I, right? It's like, even if we say we do, there are parts of it that we don't, because we've been brought up in a culture that doesn't, and we don't have language for it, and we don't trust it. So when stuff gets hard, we'll go back to the masculine and we'll grab onto that, or we'll go into our distorted feminine and be disempowered or try to manipulate or something. And so inside of organizations and teams and families and in leadership, these are the things that keep organizations and teams and leaders strong. It's actually what supports us, and people rely on it heavily. It's what our friends rely on us, what they value us for, our communities rely on. But usually any of us that are strong in these, which are most of us that are awake and aware and on this planet doing the good work we're doing, we're not compensated for it. We're not rewarded for it, or we're not acknowledged for it by ourselves or by others yet. So what happens for me when I start to share these feminine leadership archetypes, especially with women, but also with conscious men, their heads start to nod and they say, I've always shown up that way. Just didn't have words for it. So as we explore these, I want you to just kind of think about that this is about bringing language to presence, which is, you can't it's not like you can measure it in a spreadsheet. It's our energy, it's our essence, it's the impact and influence that literally is like an instrument that other people attune to. So we have to dominate people. We have to just resonate at a strong, genuine heart, body, mind, spirit level, and people are attracted to that. They resonate with it, and then they feel it inside of themselves. And the challenge is that we can't value something we don't see or we don't have words for, because otherwise it just becomes like an action or something we have to do. And because these superpowers, they're like subtle superpowers, we can't really fully wield them for the good of others, for the good of our organizations, our teams, our families, the world, of ourselves, if we don't see it and we don't have words for how it works. I kind of often joke when I'm working with leaders in groups and or one-on-one. I'm like, it's kind of like, if they're females, it's kind of like you're like Wonder Woman, and you have a lasso and you know how to do some stuff with it, but you really don't know what it can fully do, because you didn't get the instruction manual, because you didn't get born on that island where Wonder Woman grew up. Like, you were born, in New York City or Ohio or Dallas or wherever you were born, and there was no one to tell you. There's no one to tell you how to actually use that. And so these feminine leadership archetypes, they'll feel very natural as we start to talk about them, but it's the language and the imagery and then my gift of making them practical that actually then allows us to wield this full power in a way that's rooted in wisdom, focused on compassion and love and serving the whole. And then everyone gets to rise. So feminine leadership archetypes, what they do is they take us beyond the mental construct of leadership skills and qualities, which is a lot of times what I see when I'm working with people around presence is that they're trying to emulate what that's supposed to look like. So I've mentioned before, I have people who say to me, well, I want to really work on executive presence and I want you to help me with that. And I'm like, I'm not going to teach you executive presence. What I'm going to help you do is find your natural leadership presence, and I use these archetypes as part of that. And then you can apply it in your role as an executive 100%. But I want you to take that and apply it in all of the parts of that, because then you're not going to show up just to fit into what it means to be an executive, which the world doesn't need more of, because executive, basically the root of the word you all just means to execute orders. And even if you're not in an executive position, it's okay. Like just think about this in terms of the world and what we're seeing. And imagine if there was more people who were in their genuine, remember with genuine power, it means natural. Different than authentic. Authentic means true to one's story. So you can be true to your story, but your story could be all kinds of distorted because you're not coming from wholeness. But our nature is wholeness. So we're in our natural, genuine presence, then that natural leadership presence comes through. And it's not about emulating a skill or a quality. It's about resonance and energy and who you truly are. So when we get beyond just the skill level quality thing, these archetypes, what they help us do is they get us to a level of conscious embodiment. Because I love that word, conscious embodiment, where more of your innate presence becomes accessible, activated, and expressed. So instead of just thinking about or trying to emulate that leadership quality, what happens is we become more confident and we become more of a clear expression of our full self. So as we activate Creatrix today, your Creatrix is going to look different than my Creatrix, will look different than the Creatrix of the person who you've invited to be in this 10th series with you, and the Creatrixes of the people you work for, or in your family system. And that's, that is okay. Like that's actually wonderful. One of the things that I love about the evolutionary thinkers and the lineage of them, there's like, the wisdom is so like, it's just, this is how it is. And so we don't have to go make new stuff up. So I'll share this one. This is from Buckminster Fuller, and these are coming out of Lynn Twist's book, The Soul of Money, which is an amazing, amazing book. If you have not read it, you should get it. It's good. It came out in 2005, and she's in her 80s, and she's a lovely soul. And Buckminster Fuller was one of her teachers. And he said, everyone has the perfect gift to give the world. And if each of us were freed up to give the gift that is uniquely ours to give, the world would be in total harmony. So I invite you to take the Creatrix and all of the archetypes to come to find your way with it. Not my way, but your way. Because what happens is as you begin to feel the expanded presence that the archetype provides, and you start to value these previously undervalued or not articulated aspects, then your presence starts to blossom into new realms that were maybe less comfortable for you or less natural. So in these 8 different archetypes, some of us will be stronger in some and weaker in others. So the ones we're stronger in, we can like really embody, and the other ones kind of come along. And so then instead of trying to be something or fit into some leadership standard or some standard of how you're supposed to be, you just inhabit the archetype in your own unique way. And these unique innate presences are accessible to all of us. And that would be enough. That would be enough if all of us could bring this feminine leadership archetype in. It would be enough to be an energy that counteracts and therefore balances out the distortions that we're seeing. And that's the way we harmonize. It's not about better or worse, one or the other, but when we bring in that pure, whole energy from wholeness, that distortion actually wants to come towards the love. It wants to be brought in. It doesn't want to be out there. So kind of like a woman who's on a dance floor and she's just doing her thing and embodying the archetype, and that distorted masculine just comes toward it because it's the heart. And then it stands in its power in the intellect. And the two come together, and then that's how we create harmony, just by being ourselves. All right, let's take a sip. All right, green tea, blue mug. And remember, I did invite you all to invite at least one person to play with these archetypes, to explore them, to be in this 10th season. If you haven't invited your person yet, who might you want to invite? Just kind of think about that person and intend to, after we activate the Creatrix here, intend to extend the invitation to that person or to a couple people. You'll have so much more fun. I love being with you all, but you and I can't have a conversation through the podcast. So I really encourage you to do that, and also to remember to stay connected to me through my my wisdom letter, and you can go to ChristinaRilo.com. However that happens over the years, and that will be there for you to just share, so that we can stay connected that way, and that would be great too. All right, my friends, here we go. So I am going to invite you just to slow it down again. We're going to downshift as I share with you this transmission of the Creatrix and definition of who she is. And then we'll explore a little bit about where you might be stuck in letting this out. So remember, the path that we use is illuminate and educate. That's what we'll do first. Then we're going to liberate you so that you can really open up to allow this power and presence to come through you and see where you might be blocking it. And then we'll move into elevate, which is how we make this practical with some inquiries that you can apply and play with over the next, since we'll be activating these at the turns. They'll be coming out live every 40 days or so, where you can dance with this yourself for that time. And if you're listening to this afterwards through the series library or whatever, you can decide I'm going to listen to one a month, or I'm going to binge on the archetypes, whatever floats your boat. But it's great to give them each some space. Or even one a moon cycle or something like that. Okay. So if you can, I invite you to close your eyes. And if you can't, I invite you to just kind of bring all your energy in. And again, I mentioned these all have images, which of course I can't show you on the podcast, but I will be putting up some of these on my website. So do remember to stay connected. But just go ahead and I want you to just feel in and imagine the color of black and white and red, not like a Christmas red, but not like a blood red, but kind of like just a very like earthy, like almost like scarlet, but a little bit brighter red. And a lot of the feminine leadership archetypes, not all, but do have images of a female. And so this is a woman who is looking with her eyes wide open, almost like she's staring right into you. And she's naked. She's just in her bare skin. And in her two hands, she holds an egg, a beautiful egg, probably like the size of like an ostrich egg. And it has a white light coming out of it that's going over her chest and her heart and her neck. And on each shoulder sits a bird that looks kind of like a dove meets a hawk meets a phoenix, kind of fire, like a glowing fire coming out of the wings of the birds. And on her head sits a beautiful turban. It's this beautiful red turban. And she has a reddish glow around her with a black background. And here is her transmission. And transmission just means these are like the words she's speaking to you, but as you are speaking these words to yourself. So it's like the way the archetype works is that it shares this with you so you can find its resonance in yourself. And as I read this, as I share this, feel into and kind of just notice, almost like a tuning fork, which what really resonates with you. Because I'm going to invite you to choose something that really stands out. But for now, just receive it. Creatrix. I birth new worlds. I hold the possibility of future generations in my hand, for whom I care deeply and consciously. Everything I need to create is within me. Everything I need is within my connection to my body, to the earth, and the universal force that governs how creation takes place in ways that sustain life, not destroy or enslave it. Because what I create works in harmony with all things, I am given access to the mysteries of creation. I don't flaunt these gifts, nor sell my power to create something from nothing. I'm not here to be more productive. I'm not here to feed the machine. I'm not here to be enslaved to forms that take more than they give. I create freedom, harmony, love, connection, joy, purity, and possibility through the forms I midwife into being. Creatrix. So this energy of the Creatrix has the power to create, which is the color of red, to release and destroy, which is the color of black, and to preserve, which is the color of white. And that's something that each of us, you and I, just kind of sensing into that there are things within you that are wanting to birth. There are things you have birthed, both maybe physical children, but also ideas and realities that you have birthed throughout your life. You've also released things and destroyed things or put things to rest, to not move forward on those things, which it was wisdom to do. And one of the places that we fall short a lot in society is on preserving. I think we have to create, destroy, create, destroy, create, destroy, create, destroy. But that whiteness, that preserving, we talk about this a lot when we apply this to leadership. Oh my gosh, like it would just, if we all just, we didn't feel like we were in this throwaway culture or we always had to create something new. There's good things to preserve, and that's what a healthy society does. That's what a healthy person does. And so those three things really balance us out. The power to preserve, the wisdom to preserve, the wisdom of what needs to be released and destroyed, or just released and composted, and the wisdom of what is calling forth to birth, to sprout, to come forth, to create. And just notice, like, which of those energies are you naturally pretty good at? Like you're real comfortable. Like, yeah, preserve, I do that pretty well, but create, I don't have a hard time activating that fire or releasing is I hold on for things too long, whether it's hoarding actual things or it's not leaving relationships or jobs, you hang on, too long to things. And so just noticing which of those, or maybe, I always say Phoenix women that I know that I've worked with, they just burn it down, start over. And I always will say to them often, this is not that lifetime. This is the lifetime to preserve things. Whenever I'm working with people around their career, the next phase on purpose, we always start with, where have you been and what are all the things that you've already done and experienced? And you could think about this for yourself in your own life. You get to bring all those, what are you preserving from that? A lot of those things were hard won, hard won battles, lots of energy going into that. So just noticing where you're maybe strong or weak in that, but also just noticing in that, what might be being called for some more liberation. For you, is it like liberating your capacity to create and birth things, or is it more like, oh, this is really a season of releasing and destroying and choosing not to take things and dismantling? Or is this really about a season of preserving for you, of like, I need to sort out, what am I keeping, what am I letting go, so I can make space for the birthing? This is, these archetypes are so powerful, and why I love working with them, year after year, is that we come back next year and it has something different to give to us. So that's one of the construct that's really important. The other construct that's really important to understand with this creatrix inside of you is that this energy is your raw creative power. It's your raw, untamed power. It is sovereign in its nature. It is your divine birthright to be able to have it. You were born with it. The animals that go with this totems are the wolf and the snake and big cats. It's like those are animals that humans don't have dominion over. I mean, there's a reason, other than cattle, that humans tried to destroy the wolf population, because it doesn't have any predators other than men. Big cats mostly don't either, and man doesn't like that. The human domination thing doesn't really like that so much. So just try to extinguish it. And so there is something like that inside of us, of this like you can birth new worlds. You hold the possibility of future generations in your hand. You have everything you need to create within you, and everything you need is within connection to your body, and connection to the earth, and connection to the universal force that governs how creation takes place. So just even thinking about that for a moment, of the connection to your body, the connection to earth, nature, the connection to the universal force, whatever that is to you, source, divine, whatever, how those things have gotten distorted. How, especially as women, in our bodies, and our connection to our bodies is so off. And it happens for men, it happens for all genders, it happens for us as a culture, because that's where this power lives, you all. It's not in your head. It is actually in your body, and then in your connection to the earth. That's the co-creation part. And connection to the universal force. So if you think about that as another construct, where are you really strong? Is it in your connection to your body, the earth, and the universal force? Which of those three are really strong for you? And which might be weaker for you? If these are all places where you can start to look, And if you think about yourself holding the possibility for future generations, in healthy realities and healthy cultures, we think 7 generations ahead. The wisdom throughout the generations stays connected. So how are you? Do you want to, just in your ecosystem, where are you already using your creatrix energy to help the future possibilities of the future generations? How are you already doing that? All right, so that is the creatrix. I'm gonna end us today with that same reading, because I'm gonna ask you to choose, by the time we're complete with this, one or two of those places that you're like, I'm gonna write that down, and I'll make sure that this gets. Well, I'll try to make sure. This is episode number 1. Some of you will, by the time you listen to it, it might already be figured out. But I am creating here in real time, right? Just to be real with you all. Creatrix isn't like, oh, I have this plan all mapped out, and I have it all figured out, and I have a spreadsheet on it, and a 7-point plan. That's not how she works. Because she, like we talked about in the initiation of season 10, is all the seeds are within her. And she's holding this egg, and the egg's going to come out, but it's going to you got to gestate the egg, and then the egg comes out. Then you got to tend to the thing, whether that's a sprout or a little chickadee or whatever, and then it grows and it evolves. And so I just knew I had to share the archetypes with you all. and that we needed those at this time. And I knew we needed to, bring forth this energy of fierce grace within us. But how this all works, and I don't also want to go into overpromising. So this is, remember, the 4 parts that we're working with, which is personal sustainability, purpose, power, and presence. I'm not sure how I'm going to make these visible to you all. So make sure you have a pen at the end, or come back and listen to it. That's what I'd say. Okay, so let's talk about reclaiming or like opening up, transforming these distortions. Like, what keeps you distorted or disconnected from this power that you have to create whatever you create is happening in harmony. And what I love about the Creatrix too, she's so not like playing the see me game. Like, I gotta post, I gotta be seen, see me. She may choose to participate in a system, whatever that might be, but this part of like, I don't flaunt these gifts. I'm not going to sell my power to create something from nothing. I'm not here to be your productivity slave and feed the machine, or give forms more than they might give. And it's not like she's flipping the finger. She's just standing in her power, and she's like, look, like, I'm here to be part of creating something that really supports love and freedom and harmony and connection and joy and purity and possibility. And so that's what I'm going to give my energy to. Whether I'm midwifing it or I'm birthing it, because we need midwives and birthers. Like, not everyone's supposed to be having an egg. Some people birth the egg, and then the midwives come around, midwife people. Again, not gender specific, to bring that idea, to bring that child, to bring that in, to allow it to grow to maturity. And so just like considering that, we talk a lot about this in Overwhelmed and Over It. Like, the first chapter and the last chapter are all about be aware of the ways you're giving your energy and what systems you're giving those energies to, and making sure that they're not actually stealing from you and draining you and sucking you dry so that you're like a prune, instead of a beautiful well of creative energy. And so so a couple years ago, I took a couple groups of women through these feminine leadership archetypes. Some of you might know I ran something called the Elevate Leadership Councils for a couple years, and they're in those are in. They haven't gone away. They're just sitting and been waiting for. They're kind of been gestating for their next evolution. But in those two years that I did that with these groups, 3 years that I did this with these groups of women, we would do these reimagining circles and councils, and we would use the power of the Creatrix as far as co-creation, of coming together and kind of putting a lens on what keeps us, what are the distortions that keep us from activating these archetypes, and what supports us. So I'm going to share a couple distortions, some that are systemic and some that are self. So that's where we're going. And I'll share them. And as I go through them, just notice which of these might be present for you now that are keeping you from more fully, let's say, because I don't know if we're ever more fully opening to your co-creative, raw creative power, life force moving through you, you feeling that in your body, you believing it, you valuing it, and not like gung-ho, I got to go out there and do this on my own, but being connected to your body, to the earth, to whatever that universal source is for you, and for connected to other co-creators who are and want to be in co-generative relationships. All right, so here are 6 systemic distortions or things that disconnect you from allowing this archetypal power move through you. See which one of these show up for you. 1 is body shame and disconnection. not connected to my body. I have body shame in here. And again, these are all systemically induced upon us, like we're imprinted with it. So there's no shame in having any of these. The power is in saying, oh, that one. And you might have multiples of these, but I want you to choose one that you're like, all right, I see that. That is definitely creating a distortion. That's creating disconnection from my full power and presence. I'm going to work with that one. And I'm going to do what we call alchemize it. I'm going to see where it has the sludge and the shadowy stuff on it. And then I'm going to bring out that pearl, that lotus flower, because the shadows and the things that have happened in our life, they temper us. They make us stronger, and we learn from them. But then there's a time when you want to, pull it out of the muck and be like, okay, it's time to shine now. So if you can narrow it down and focus on one, this is like in the series I did on illuminating patterns and interference. If you missed that, look in the series library, easy to find. This is part of how we make that practical. So number one is body shame and disconnection. 2 is misunderstanding or ignorance of sexual energy as creative life force energy. So the thing is that if you know Qigong, traditional Chinese medicine, a lot of the Indian philosophies, yoga, etc., we talk about sexual creative energy all day long. Kundalini, like it's taught in Eastern philosophy that you have this creative life force that moves through you. It runs up your spine, from the base of your spine, all the way up through all of your channels. But in the Western world, no, you got to damp down, keep it damped down, or it comes out distorted. And sexual energy isn't about having intercourse, and it's not about I got to attract a person to me, although you can use it that way. But if you cultivate that sexual energy, that it's your creative life force within yourself, which is what a lot of Eastern traditions and practices teach you, that's part of how we keep our life force strong, and we stay young, and we stay vibrant, and we stay healthy. So you kind of have to shift your relationship with the energy of sexual energy and creative life force energy. So is that like an area, like you just misunderstand it, you have an ignorance about it, you just weren't taught it? I mean, I grew up in the middle of Chicago. No one taught me anything about any of those things until I found my wisdom schools. Okay, number 3, misunderstanding of the self just as a physical body. So we have, depending on the philosophy you believe in or you've studied, some as much as 10 bodies. We have mental bodies, we have emotional bodies, we have subtle bodies, we have physical bodies, and we have spiritual bodies. And we've talked a lot about this in Feminine Power Time. But you don't know what you don't know. When I went to my first yoga, or not my first, but probably maybe my 10th Kundalini yoga class back in 2006 or something, 7. They started talking to me about the 10 bodies. I was like, what you talking about? What do you mean I have 10 bodies? That's crazy. But I was very open. I wanted to learn. And that's, I've been studying that and practicing that for many, many years. So you just don't know what you don't know. Or when I work inside of teams or with leaders, I'm like, look, there's 4 parts of you: body, mind, heart, and spirit. If you want to get to the root of burnout and the root of overwhelm and actually create sustainability and vitality, we have to work on all 4 realms. So is that an area where you're like, I could use some more understanding and wisdom about it? Number 4 is the value of society on physical form, product, and producing. So remember, these feminine leadership archetypes are about really looking at our value system, because there's unconscious imprints in there. And a lot of times, sometimes even more with women, I would say, than men, is they're like, gotta be productive, gotta be producing. If I'm not producing, if I'm not being productive, if I can't, see it, it's not real. I think a lot of times I see it more in women than men, because we've been so enculturated to have to feel like we have to play in that game to be valuable. And when I work with leadership cohorts inside of organizations, and this is specifically usually with women, sometimes with women and men, but when I'm talking about specifically with women, all their creativity is dried up because they're so over-indexed in productivity, because they're afraid they're going to get fired. They're afraid they're going to get laid off. Especially if they're in tech jobs or engineering jobs, they're afraid that they can't keep up. And so they overcompensate, and then they drain all that creativity. And as soon as we reopen that other side, of creativity. So it's actually a power spectrum of creativity and productivity. They actually are more productive, but they have their creative spirit, that creative life force that the Creatrix has, comes back online. So is that, where the distortion or the disconnection is this, it has to, what you can see physically, what you're producing, have to focus on the product. The fifth one is value of society, that it's a focus on the mental mind as creator versus co-creative with heart, intuitive field, and soul. So this is another duality reality where the intellect is the masculine, logical, rational. Feminine is the heart, the intuition. And I've said for a long time, when you only focus on the masculine, intellectual, the human mind will create lots of things that are very terrible for this world. But as soon as you bring the heart in, there's no way that you would create things like the atomic bomb. There's no way that you would create these I'm just calling them they're called concentration camps in America, of detention camps. Human heart wouldn't do that. They're like, no, there's a better way to treat people with dignity. Dignity comes from the heart. And so I'm treating people like humans, but we can also just over-rely on our mental mind, even, again, women or men. So is this where the value system comes for you? Is more mental mind as creation, like I create through my mind, versus I'm in co-creation with my heart and my intuition and my soul. And then the last one is you mine your creative life force without valuing you, acknowledging, or compensating, or just straight up take it. And this is where it means it's you just give your creative life force away like it's at a free flower stand or something, and you don't value it, you don't acknowledge it, you don't get compensated for it. It's you just keep giving it away so you don't have enough. So which of those feel those might be getting in my way? Body shame and disconnection. What is the sexual energy and creative life force energy? I'm only really see myself as a physical body. Somehow got trapped in this producing, productive, only physical form, things you can see are valuable. My creation is all coming from my mind versus my heart and my intuitive field coming from soul. Or I'm just giving away my creative life force like it's free. And you might have something else, but just kind of tuning in so that you can kind of almost like a knot in your body, you can kind of release that and open up the flow. So before we're going up to open up the flow, we're going to just start where I want to shine a light on one more place where the Creatrix part can get really distorted, and it comes from how we do it to ourselves. So that's all systemic. But here are the way that it shows up inside of ourselves with the Creatrix. And for any of you that have overwhelmed and over it, in the book, in the third section, in the working wise section, there's a model for sustainable co-creation and unsustainable co-creation. And it works on the element basis, where there's fire, then there's water, then there's air, then there's earth. More than I'm going to get into right now, but they are related to this. So as we go through these, for those of you that know that model, you can look at it. And for those of you that don't know the model, this will still make sense. So ways that you diminish this power of your own Creatrix. The fire part is you have too many forms. You have all these ideas, and you now have all these things you have to you've created, and it's like having 12 kittens, and you only have 2 breasts to feed. And so that is, you just dissipate the energy by having too many forms. And so the Creatrix energy, all her life force is going into too many versus keeping it focused on what you can actually maintain and sustain. So some people create too many things to take care of. Some of you, it might be more water-based where the distortion comes from. And think of stagnant water. So distortion with fire is just firing off like firecrackers. Distortion with water is stagnation. So this would be where you get stuck in fear, perfection, procrastination. You miss the opportunity, so things don't happen. And so you're not responding, you're not putting that Creatrix energy into the field in any way. You're almost inverted into yourself. And it can be because of perfection, procrastination, fear of rejection, fear of whatever. And then you miss the opportunities and you're like stagnant water. And the creatrix has to move. Like that energy it needs to flow, which is why yoga and pranayama and tai chi and qigong and just things that move that energy, oftentimes we get inspired by when we're moving because the creative energy is flowing. Or for you, is it air? And air is where the head says yes, but the heart and body say no. So it's like, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, let's do that. But there's like something in you where your heart and body are like, no, don't do that. And you can feel it, but you just want to move into action. So you bypass your heart, you bypass your body, again, disconnected from your power centers, and let the mind guide you. That also will create maybe not too many forms, but you'll choose the misaligned things. So when you try to put that creatrix energy into the world in that way, and they're not aligned with your heart and your body, which is your deeper knowing, the energy won't come back as much because you're not aligned. And the last one is earth. And this is where you do the efforting and the labor, not the co-creating. So you put all this energy and you put all this labor and you're just pouring in and you're just, it's all your personal energy versus co-creating, which is with the earth, with source, of course, with your own presence, and then with others. And that's like putting the burden on your back and not allowing the flow to move through you. You're more like Hercules than really doing it the feminine balance kind of way. And so just notice which of those elements get out of balance for you, fire, water, air, or earth. And where maybe pick one of those that you're like, for me, I'm really watching my air go crazy right now. And I wrote down 20 projects of how I could give my life force. Not 2010, because we did the mid-year power pause. And I wrote down all of the projects, and I'm like, that's too many projects. So they're all good ideas. They're all really good ideas. But I'm making myself kind of sit and in the water in a healthy way of like, I'm just going to float on my floaty and kind of let those ideas like kind of just see where they want to go and not put so much pressure on myself to make them happen. So if I become impatient, I push my air, that thinking into action, not in the right timing. So you can also ask yourself which of these elements might help me right now. Like for Noah, he gets stuck in the water. So he could really use more of the fire energy of like, where's my passion? What do I really want to be doing? Like what lights me up? And then from there, that can move him into, okay, then what might that look like? And let me try some stuff. Let me test some stuff. So I think that's the thing about the creatrix as we kind of go into the last part here is that this energy is about experimenting and exploring and understanding that things grow over time and that you have these seeds within you that, and some are going to take and some aren't going to take. But to really look and be aware for yourself, like where am I blocking the flow? Or where don't I just have I don't have the wisdom to know how to even work with this flow? And then embrace your power to study with people and things that have and can give you that wisdom, which that you can resonate with. And that, how do I say this? It's like, you don't have to do anything to be a creatrix. You have to choose to value creativity as much or more than you value productivity. You have to believe that life force is real, that creative energy is real, that in some ways we're having a crisis of imagination. You have to open up your eyes, like the creatrix eyes are wide open, and be like, oh, hell to the no, what is happening on this planet is not okay with me. Like, not on my watch. And some of the other archetypes will help that. And I know I have the power within me to co-create different realities, even if it just starts in my own life, in my own choices, and then in my relationships, and then in my team, and then in my family. Not by raging, not by having to spend $1 gazillion, but through my presence and my capacity to be in tune with the universe, with Earth, with myself, and with other co-creators that help me keep my vibration high. And then what we do, practice of co-creations, is a big part of Feminine Power Time. And what we're here to do is we work with the cycles. There's a reason we pause on the 4 main cycles and the 4 cross quarter points. We just did our August one that we do between solstice and equinox, one of my favorite rituals, which is looking back at where you gave your energy to last fall and seeing what you're harvesting today because of where you put your energy last fall. So here's where we're going to elevate. That's question number 1. Just look at inquiry. Where did you put your energy at last August, September, October, November? And 1 year later, what are you harvesting because of that? That's a co-creative practice that juices up our creatrix to be like, wow, yeah, I did give energy to that. And this is bearing fruit. This is things are changing. We get Shiva's amnesia. We get this, especially now, I feel like if we were in Harry Potter, the Dementors are out. And so, it's like we got to do things to keep ourselves bright. And so these turns and these small rituals, co-creative rituals we do, are like, wow, yeah. So then now we're here, right? We're here today, whenever you're listening to this. And I have 3 inquiries for you. So you want to write these down, and then we'll end with the Creatrix transmission. This episode is a little longer than normal because we set the field again with the archetypes. And just before we do this last part, I just want to say one thing that's true about when we live in a world that values the feminine, we take the space we need up front to really set a foundation. Because we know when we do that, these fields of co-creation, these fields of creation, then they're so much more powerful and we can actually move more swiftly. But if we don't start slow, kind of like go slow to move fast, then it's like we're not rooted in what we're doing, why we're doing it. And I remember an elder, my friend Shiloh's mother, and her bonus mother, who was her art mentor, Sue Soya Hellers, they taught me that context is everything. No one taught me that growing up in Chicago. There were amazing women who were at the forefront of the wave of the women's movement in the 70s, and artists and beautiful souls. And it was like, this is why it's important. Elders, it's like as you get older, it's not like you should go out to pasture, send the old mare out. She ain't what she used to be. That's part of the distortion, so much wisdom. But I learned that context is everything. And through both my Earth Wisdom teacher, Pele, and my Feminine Wisdom teacher, Ariel, they both, took me over a decade of them saying to me, Arilo, slow down. Arilo, slow down. And so how I've started this out might be unconventional. In fact, it was funny. I asked Noah today what he thought if I should, do a separate podcast to get us started for season 10, and that this one would be a little bit longer because I wanted to really give you all some things to put your teeth into around archetypes. And he's like, no, I don't think you should do that. You should just talk for a minute or two about context and just jump into it because they're not going to want to listen to all of that. And then, of course, I did what I wanted to do. And I went down in between doing the first one and doing this one. And I'm like, thank you so much for giving me something to respond to and rebel against. And he's like, kind of like, well, not my pleasure, but you're welcome. And that's just my personality. I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, so I always do best when I have something to rebel against. And but I'm so glad we did. And I hope that as we go through this time together, whether you've been here for the whole 10 years or wherever you've joined or wherever we're going from here, is that how I'm sharing this is a model for what I've learned and have to believe with all of my heart is the way of creating sustainability and wholeness and connectivity. And so that's why we've done that. And I know that many of you operate this way as well. And as we always say, it's a practice and that we have to come home to, because the banana world wants us all to be operating as fast as possible and just get in there and, I don't know, break stuff and do whatever. But that's not wisdom. That's just stupidity, because then you got to go fix all of it. Much easier to slow down and take a look before you kind of move forward. We also don't want to get stuck in the water either, and things are stagnant. So who knows? I'm not in charge. Those are always, that's above my pay grade and not my department. My department now is to give you all mystery inquiries, in addition to the bonus one I just gave you, which is kind of looking back at the way you gave your energy last fall and noticing what you're harvesting now. So here are the other three, and these are co-creative practices that the Creatrix just loves. So looking forward to this next cycle, so kind of wherever, so for us, right now, we're right at that in-between time between now and equinox, fall equinox. But so I'm looking right now forward till the end of this year, till winter solstice or December solstice. But you can pick any cross-quarter point. So whether you want to pick equinox or a solstice, whether that's summer, winter, fall, or spring, if you're listening to this later. But for those of us that are listening to it live in real time, kind of looking forward into this time span, inviting the energy of the Creatrix to be with you and guide you into the forms and the flow and the aligned ideas and actions. What will you give your life force to? What will you give your life force to? And you can, again, you can also, if you don't want to do this for a time span, just tune into it kind of for like going forward from here. Like, what will you give your life force to? What do you choose to give your life force to? And just see if you can tune into at least one thing. You're like, I know this is mine, and I desire to, it's aligned to give my life force to this. If you can really feel that. Remember, the Creatrix she's embodied. It's embodied energy. I want you to feel at least one thing, like as we go forward from here, you're giving your life force to this. Because you can feel that confidence, feel that surety. And if it helps to break it down into the next 6 months or 3 months, great. If not, you just know moving forward. So to say it's on your watch. 2, what will waste or drain your life force? What will waste or drain your life force? Or as we talked about over and over in chapter 12, Ann Richards, the former governor of Texas, said, I'm not going to shoot off and say, I'm not going to waste my chi on that. I'm not going to waste my chi on that. So it's a practice we do, taken from an evolutionary thinker and creator, is what do you know will waste your life force and drain your energy and life force? Waste and drain your life force and energy. Drain, waste your chi and creativity. And what can you say no to in that? What can you say no to? And that can be a bigger, cycle again, or it might just be the next 3 months, the rest of the year. For me, like I know like what wastes and drains my life force faster than anything is to being plugged into the mainstream media. I'm not plugged into a lot of it. I get it from, a few sources. But right now, it feels like shock points. Like it's just too much. And it's stopping me. It's perfect. It's like it stops the flow of my Creatrix from actually allowing the stuff that wants to come through. It's my part to reimagine the way we in the world work. Like it can't come through if I'm constantly being shocked by the stuff I have no control over. I can't do anything about those things. but I can show up and use my creative life force and my creatrix to reimagine and redesign the world and create fields like this for co-creators such as yourself, and show up for the leaders I coach who are inside the systems, who are making change and making and balancing business and people and all kinds of things. Like, that's my job. That's my job. So, just be real about that with yourself. And it doesn't have to be forever. You can break it down, but it's like, I said to myself, like last week, I'm like, I need a cocoon of solace. I am being bombarded and this is like messing up my frequency. And so I'm going to do this I'm going to turn it all off through August 12th, and then I'm going to see what happens. But it might just be like this for the rest of the year. And I'm feeling so much better. I'm getting way better sleep. I'm feeling better. And clarity is starting to come. So you have to remember, like, why I'm asking you this question is like, there's things that want to jam up your frequency. And we don't have time for our frequencies to be jammed up. So we keep our eyes open, but we also take responsibility for our own frequency. So what is that for you? And then lastly, what will uplift, brighten, and sustain your creative life force? What will uplift, brighten, and sustain your creative life force? And just take a moment and just like close your eyes and feel again into your body and feel that light at the center of your heart, in your belly, when your mind is clear and in its neutral state, that radiance around you in your magnetic field. And what do you know uplifts you, brightens you, sustains that creative life force? And see if you can like tune into one or two things that you already know that really brighten you in your work in the world or your relationships or your well-being. I'll share a couple with you that are mine, that I know that work really well for me. Is one is focus on the receptive ones. So as I make my choices about where I'm going to communicate, how I'm going to communicate, and what that's going to look like, I'm focusing on the receptive ones because otherwise it just drains me. But oh my gosh, when there's like a receptivity, again, it's not about me having to be seen. It just feels so good to be like, oh my gosh, like this like we're creating together. Like this is amazing. Like there's so many of us. So focusing on the receptive ones, and feel free to borrow any of these. 2, focus on the ecosystems that you can influence. And know that that's enough because there's so many of us co-creators out here. So focus on the ecosystems you can influence and love them and be in them and bring the light to them. And then they can also feed you and also nourish you. And then the third one is follow the joy, the delight, the energy, even through the challenges, even through the challenging. Do not wait to find and follow the joy, the delight, the energy. This is like, for me, it's like what feels good in my body, mind, heart, and spirit. Where is the energy taking me? Where is the delight? Where is the joy? If it feels heavy, if it feels like different than a challenge. That's why I love yoga. Yoga teaches us to meet the challenge, but not to like be in burden and stress. And so it's just the way that it's the way the energy is guiding you. Where's the joy, the delight, the energy? Not in bypassing, but by it helps bring you alive. And that's the creative life force. So those are the inquiries. You got the one for looking back at the harvest. What will you give your life force and creative energy to? What will waste or drain your life force that you can say no to? And what will uplift and brighten and sustain your creative life force? So I invite you to journal those out and then conversate on those. Who are you choosing? Who's your person? At least one. And then forward this and tell them, invite them, not tell, we don't tell in the feminine, invite them to subscribe to the podcast so that it comes on their feed. That's the best way. I am also experimenting with the Creatrix, and I were hanging out, and we are experimenting with how I want to communicate. Stay tuned. I'm migrating off of a system that I've been on for 10 years, maybe longer even, since like 2010. And every time I go in it just sucks energy out of me. It's like I only send one email a month because I'm just like, 3 hours later, and it's so draining. And I found a new one that's simple and lovely and beautiful. And So I'm feeling into how that could be joyful and delightful to be like, hey, everybody, just remember, not like more things to do, but little sparkles, of wisdom in your inbox. And so I'm migrating, and changing things and listening too. So do make sure you have the podcast on your go to Feminine Power Time in your app, and that way you'll always get the next episode. And also go to my website, ChristinaRilo.com, and make sure that you're subscribed to the Wisdom Letter so that you'll receive that as well. And make sure that you invite somebody to join you. And before I end us with the Creatrixes, so you can pick which one you're going to work with here, I want to just say thank you to 3 of you who in July, June, and May, 1 per month, I love that, left your words as reviews on the podcast. Never Stop Quitting said the best podcast, you just have to listen to understand and keep listening. DG Donna said light and wisdom to life, that she's been here for years and says thank you. She said, I've followed Christina Rella for years and just have to say these podcasts are such a bright light of wisdom. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Never Stop Quitting. And then Mishi, I love that, says 5 years. I've been a consistent listener for 5 years, and I don't think I've ever missed an episode. Thank you so much for your consistency and dedication. And so I just want to say to all of you that are here listening, and to those of you that have posted up where I can actually see it, this helps me know that you're out there listening, because I just don't know. And I'm following my Creatrix and my spirit that says, yes, do this. And how do I do this in a sustainable way that is, in the harmony of giving and receiving in the cycle? And so I've, said yes to these 8 archetypes, and then letting spirit kind of show us what else is going to drop in around power and purpose and personal sustainability. So we have begun, and I'm glad to be here with you all. And thanks for hanging here for the longer episode to get us started. So in ending, I'm just going to read this transmission once more. And I invite you to choose one of these, to write it down and to work with it in your daily life. And for those of you who are wondering how you might get the transcripts, if you're in iTunes, the transcript is part of it. So you can also see these right in the transcript. All right, Creatrix, here she goes, y'all. I birth new worlds. I hold the possibility of future generations in my hand, for whom I care deeply and consciously. Everything I need to create is within me. Everything I need is within my connection to my body, to the earth, and the universal force that governs how creation takes place in ways that sustain life, not destroy or enslave it. Because what I create works in harmony with all things, I am given access to the mysteries of creation. I don't flaunt these gifts nor sell my power to create something from nothing. I'm not here to be more productive. I'm not here to feed the machine. I'm not here to be enslaved to forms that take more than they give. I create freedom, harmony, love, connection, joy, purity, and possibility through the forms I midwife into being. So grateful to be with you on this journey, y'all, reimagining the way we and the world work from the inside out. When the feminine leads, reimagining our world together. I will see you very soon. Much love.